By day, I'm a nobody, a geek, a nerd, a dork. But by night, I transform into the fearsome Libromancer.
Excuse me, did someone just say liberal? Well, I was thinking it, but it's libro. Libro. I don't care what the new woke term for it is. I'm here to own libs.
Ben, can you please just leave me alone? I'm trying to have a moment here.
So, your ritual archetype, huh? Well, where's your ritual spell?
We've been over this. It doesn't have one.
Don't be silly. Every ritual archetype needs a ritual spell. It's right there in the name.
Ben, have you ever heard of megalith?
What is that, one of your sociology terms? There's nothing about that archetype in my rulebook 1.0.
Alright, let's get out of here.
Heh, another dual one in the marketplace of ideas.
Good afternoon, Jank enthusiasts. I'm MBT, and this is 10-Minute Testing. Sometimes it seems like the OCG gets all the fun, all the best new releases, a master dual bane list closer to their own, and all the best formats. You know, provided you like Splite. But today we're looking at some of the TCG exclusive toys trickled out over the last few packs. Presenting Libromancer.
There's a word for what you are, and that word is, now let's see, dork?
So here's the list. I stole this one from Half Miss. As always, I'll give you a background about the archetype, a little bit of a discussion about what I hope the deck can do, and of course, the card by card. But first, this video is sponsored by Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro Deck. Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro Deck is the pack opening website that everyone's been using for their progression series, but you might have missed it's also got a deck builder, a card database, and a wealth of strategy articles. I personally use it to post the Chalice Slime monthly deck breakdowns, so give it a look at www.ygoprodeck.com. Now, let's look at Libromancer. Libromancer is another entry in a long series of Konami testing the waters of what they're allowed to print on a ritual monster. Given that the original rituals were so bad, it's not surprising to see they're exploring additional design space, but these might just be the weirdest representatives of the super type yet. First up, we had Nekroz, a series of ritual monsters whose ritual spell didn't use material from the hand or field. Then we had Drytron, whose ritual spell cares about attack values instead of stars. Then Magiki, whose ritual spell isn't a ritual spell. Then Megalith, who didn't use ritual spells at all. Finally, we have Libromancer, whose field spell Rota is also their ritual spell, and it isn't a once per turn. Now that they've been set up for success, let me bring you back down to earth. The Libromancers are a series of classmates who transform into their stands when the need arises. Their main deck monsters can reveal a ritual monster in hand, summon themselves, and then add a card from your deck to your hand. Fire adds a monster, Geek Boy adds a spell, and Agent adds a card from your graveyard. These three form a resource loop that enables you to summon a Doom Broker every turn, interrupt with Intervention, and then cycle all the resources back to do it again on the crackback. Unlike the incantations, these monsters don't extra lock you, so you can use the on-field bodies to set up Barone by way of Diviner, Apollosa provided you have enough monsters, and Access Code going second. That said, their exceptionally weak ritual monster lineup means it's unlikely any of them are going to be the next meta monstrosity, at least not until they get some more support. One more thing before we get into the card by card. Technically, this deck does not have a normal summon. We've opted for Diviner, but for the time being, you're probably well served by using the Punk engine to make Halkdon, or by using spare material to make Dagda, Scythe, and Verte DPE. I've decided to showcase a build that doesn't do any of that stuff for two reasons. Firstly, there are a ton of better decks that already do those things, and showing you the 5th best Halkdon setup doesn't seem like a good use of either of our times. Secondly, I think some or all of those cards might just be straight up banned next list, which could drop today. So I think jamming those into a list that might be defunct by the time I upload is not a good idea. So with that, let's get into the card by card. First up, our Libromancers. 2 Libromancer Agent. This card allows you to reveal a ritual monster in your hand, special summon this from your hand, target a Libro monster in your graveyard except Agent added to your hand, then if you added a spell trap, put a card from your hand on the bottom of your deck. You might think that that's a minus, but usually you are recycling Intervention, which you will add back to your hand by Doom Broker later. After that, we've got Libromancer Fire. This card allows you to reveal a ritual in your hand to special summon this card, and if it's special summoned, you can add a Libro monster from your deck to your hand except for Fire. Geek Boy can reveal a ritual monster in your hand, special summon it, and if it's special summoned, add a Libromancer spell from your deck to your hand as well. Now, importantly, that special summon doesn't have to be by its own effect, so you can, of course, emergency teleport into this psychic-type monster. After that, we've got 3 Ash Blossom, 3 Diviner of the Herald, 3 Effect Veiler, 1 Magician Souls, and 1 Illusion of Chaos. You end up with a lot of extraneous ritual searches over the course of your combo, and it's always good to find additional rituals to get your combo started. So Chaos is right at home, as is Magician Souls to send spent field spells. After that, we've got 1 Doom Broker on Ritual Summon. It can attack directly directly and can set one Libromancer trap directly from your deck. The card that we'll be setting is Libromancer Intervention, which, if your opponent activates a card or effect, allows you to target a Libromancer ritual monster you control, put it back in the hand, negate the activated effect, and then special summon a Libromancer from the graveyard. We're also playing one Cyber Angel Benten. This card's just generally very good. The stars line up particularly well with Doombroker. If you open this, not only can it start all your combos by being the revealed ritual, it also pluses you into Diviner, and you don't have to use your normal summon. After that, we've got one copy of Libromancer Mist Girl. This card is a little bit sussy. It's not particularly good, but the star line lines up well with some setups, and honestly, you are really hurting for just having ritual monsters in rotation. You can ritual summon this card with a Libromancer card. If it was ritual summoned by using a monster on the field, it can't be targeted with the monster effects, and if it's special summoned, you can target a face-up monster your opponent controls, change its attack to 0, and negate its effects until the end of the turn. Finally, we're playing one Soul of Purity and Light. Again, 6 stars and 4 stars are really important because of the way Diviner interacts with this deck specifically. Sets up Barone very nicely, but also a 6-star extender means that you can overlay this with a Doombroker to go into something like a Photon Strike Bouncer. It's a fairy, so it's searchable off of Ben 10 in a world where you already have everything. It's a flex slot for sure and will probably disappear as the deck gets some more resources in future sets, but for now I do kind of like it. 3 copies of Pot of Prosperity, 3 copies of Preparation of Rites, 1 copy of Called by the Grave, triple Emergency Teleport, 3 Libromancer First Appearance. This card is unbelievably broken. When it's activated, you add a Libro monster from your deck to your hand with a different name than the cards you control, and then during your main phase you can ritual summon a Libro monster from your hand by tributing monsters from your hand or field whose total levels equal or exceed its level. You can only activate one of these per turn, so that first effect is a hard once, but the second isn't a once at all. You can ritual summon multiple times using this card over the course of a turn. It's really something. We finally got 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence and, of course, the Libromancer Intervention I mentioned earlier. In the extra, we have Entis for Diviner reasons, Ruddy Rose Dragon, Baron de Fleur, Shooting Riser Dragon. You occasionally end on Hauk, and this is a great way to get cards into your graveyard post-board. It becomes way better when you can start setting things like Token Collector. 2 Herald of the Arclight, 1 Ptolemy M7, 1 Bouncer. These are just your 6s, and one's extension, one's negation. Underworld Goddess of the Closed World, we have the space, so we might as well play her. Access Code Talker, Apollosa, Nightmare Unicorn, Selene, IP Masquerena, and Hauka Fibrax. So with that, let's get into the games. Our first match is up against Adagnister, and I will not make the joke. I know that red is sus, but I'm not saying the A word. This isn't Danny's channel. We have standards. Our hand is pretty good. Our opponent has 2 hand traps, but hopefully that won't matter. We're going to begin with a copy of Fire. We'll trigger Fire in order to get a copy of Geek Boy to hand. We'll trigger Geek Boy, summon it, and then our opponent is going to fire off an Infinite Impermanence. No big deal because we have already drawn the field spell. We'll go for the first appearance afterwards in order to get a copy of the ritual. We'll go for first appearance after that in order to go into the Doombroker, pitching a Ben 10 and using the Ben 10 to search a Diviner. We'll go ahead and set Intervention and then activate Diviner's effect in order to send a Herald of the Arclight. That's going to add the other Libromancer to hand before we go into Baron de Fleur and then activate the effect of the Illusion of Chaos. We're going to souls here. I get a little bit greedy. We souls for 2, pitching both the field spell and the Called by the Grave to go into a Masquerena and pass. Our opponent draws for turn. They're going to go for a Small World. We'll let that resolve. They're going to add a Picari to hand. They'll go for Picari. We will go for Baron de Fleur. We don't want them getting that field spell. They'll go for Fighting Spirit here. We will Intervention to negate it, and because they don't have access to the field, they'll concede. Our second match is up against Dinomorphia. They are going first, and you might expect that Solemn Imperm Diplo's hand trap is not what we want to be playing against, but I don't see a Frenzy in that opener. They're going to begin with the normal summoned Diplos. They're going to send Terezi to the graveyard, set 3, and pass back to us. Our hand is fine. Opening Ben 10's pretty good. We're going to go for the Geek Boy. Use the effect of the Geek Boy to get from deck to hand the field spell. We'll go for first appearance. They let it resolve. We are going to go ahead and grab Fire. We'll activate the effect of Fire and use Fire's effect in order to add from deck to hand the Doombroker. We're going to normal summon this effect failure to Fish. Thankfully, we do catch something. The Hauk eats a Solemn Strike. We'll go for the first appearance. I'm shocked they didn't Ghost Ogre this until I realized they can just Ghost Ogre the Doombroker, and it's a million times better. Okay, we get to set this copy of Intervention, set 1 card, and pass back to our opponent. They draw for turn, and Brute isn't anything. They'll pass back to us. We get to try again, and we do have Diviner this time. We're going to normal summon the Diviner. We're going to send from deck to graveyard a Herald of the Arclight, which adds Illusion of Chaos to hand. We'll go for Baron. They will Brute. We will Baron. They will Imperm, and that is almost the entire field dealt with. Okay, from this position, we should be fine. They're going to go for Diplo in order to summon back Terezi. They'll trigger Terezi. We will Imperm the Terezi, which also turns off the Solemn Judgment in the same column. We'll go for Geek Boy afterwards to summon it. We'll We'll trigger the effect of the Geek Boy in order to add from deck to hand a first appearance. We'll go for the Illusion of Chaos for a Magician Souls, activate Magician Souls. We can send both the first appearance that's already been spent and the intervention, which is useless, to draw a couple of cards. One of them is Prosby, which is not where you want to be, but the other is Fire, which is where you do want to be. We'll use Fire in order to get from deck to hand an agent. We'll go for the agent. We'll trigger the effect of the agent, and now we can probably get out the Mist Girl as well by just being a little silly. We're going to send a hand trap and the souls to the graveyard for her, and this should be lethal until I realize they get to trigger Diplos in the damage step, and that means they can prevent lethal by banishing the Sonic from the graveyard. Okay, well, they are still really low. We'll go into Unicorn and spin that last back row before passing back to our opponent. One card off the top, and it is Frenzy. You've got to be kidding me. Oh, that's so good. But thankfully, that is also the exact reason why we kept one of these two Ash Blossoms in our hand. We'll go for the access code talker. They will Frenzy. We will Ash Blossom, and we will get in for lethal amounts of damage. So it's time for game 3, and you know what that means, a best of 3 versus meta. Our opponent's playing Sword Soul Tenyi, so wish us luck. We are at least going first. This hand is pretty good. We just need a Ritual Monster to turn it all on, so let's find off the top. Okay, that's a Ritual Monster. That's also a Ritual Monster. Okay, let's take the Cyber Angel Ben 10, and then afterwards we can activate the effect of the Geek Boy, summoning Geek Boy, revealing the Cyber Angel Ben 10 to add from deck to hand. You guessed it, first appearance. We'll go for first appearance in order to add from deck to hand the Doom Broker. Afterwards, we're going to go for the Agent. From here, we can activate the first appearance to summon this Doom Broker and trigger Ben 10 to get a copy of the Diviner. We'll activate Diviner's effect here in order to send Herald. We'll activate Herald's effect to go into Illusion of Chaos, then Doom Broker to set to our field an intervention. We're going to go into a Hulk, trigger the effect of the Hulk in order to summon an Effect Veiler, and from here we'll go Agent to add back the Geek Boy, which unfortunately eats a Ghost Bell. No big deal, we can Apo for 3 and pass back turn here with 2 hand traps, an Omni, and 3 Apos. They'll go for Vishutta. They're going to link off for a copy of Monk of the Tenyi. They're going to go for the Vishutta here. We are going to unfortunately have to Apo that. They're going to Chain Dragon Cycle. We will Ash that, and things are looking pretty good. The Pot of Desires basically exists to bait out the intervention, but I mean, I'll fall for it. We'll bring back the Agent. I feel pretty greedy here. I think it can survive until next turn. They're going to go Taya. We are going to Apollosa, and then they're going to special summon Ecclesia. Go into Crimson Blader. Why are they playing Crimson Blader now? I blame Master Duel. This is an entirely MD-based metagame call. All right, we draw for turn. Let's go for the Geek Boy. We are going to summon the Geek Boy and then add from deck to hand another copy of First Appearance. From here, we can activate the Illusion of Chaos. This First Appearance has been spent, so we can send it safely to the graveyard to draw an additional card. Anything off the top is going to be crazy here, and yeah, Diviner is the craziest possible thing we could have drawn. We're going to go for first into Fire. We'll trigger Fire in order to get from deck to hand an Agent. We'll trigger Agent. We will summon it, and then after that, we'll trigger the effect of the Agent to get back the trap. We're going to normal summon this Diviner of the Herald. We'll activate the effect, and our opponent says, okay, fine, I'll concede. So it's time for game 2, and whoa! 3 of a kind versus 2 hand traps. This is a very winnable game for us. Our opponent's going to begin with a copy of Ashana. They'll summon it to their side of the field and go into Monk of the Tenyi before activating Vessel and getting ashed. Good luck with the remainder of your hand, buddy. They're going to go for Ashana in order to summon from deck an Adhara. From here, they can go into a second Monk and trigger the effect of the Adhara, adding back the Ashana, then normal summon this copy of Ecclesia. They summon a Moye. We don't infip. I wait for the Chi-Shao, which is maybe a mistake. They go for Chi-Shao, trigger the Chi-Shao, trigger the Moye. We activate Infinite Impermanence. I just expected they had a long one in hand if they were keeping 3. They draw another Tenyi. Wow, into Shaman. That's interesting. They'll bring back the Monk and stop here, so that's 1 negate, but unfortunately our hand is pretty weak. We're going to go Preparation of Rites for a Ben 10. We'll activate Fire. We summon Fire, but if they negate this, which they do, we are kind of out of luck. Well, we can normal summon this copy of Effect Veiler to go into a Crystron Hauka Fibrax. We can use that to go into another Effect Veiler into a Selene, but we only have 2 spells in rotation, so we have to use the Magician Souls in our hand as an extender. From here, we can go into a copy of Access Code Talker, but we can't really wipe the board. The blue in the graveyard means that when we destroy this Monk of the Tenyi, it will be able to resummon itself and destroy our Access Code Talker, which it does. I cannot believe it, but we are going to have to go to game 3. So it's time for that all-important game 3, and whoa! Both these hands are unbelievable. Wow. So we have a starter plus Prosperity plus Called by the Grave plus a hand trap, and our opponent has 2 hand traps plus a starter plus a Shunna plus Pot of Desires plus L plus Ratio plus your white. Let's see how this one goes. We're going to begin with a copy of Fire. We'll activate the effect, summon it to our side of the field, and fire the effect. They'll go for Ash Blossom. We'll Called by, but unfortunately Ghost Bell answers exactly that. Okay, no big deal. We can still make this work. We just have to get a pretty lucky Pot of Prosperity, and by lucky I mean literally any starter, including Geek Boy. All right, sucks to pass on the Diviner, but it is what it is. We'll go for the Geek Boy here. We're going to summon it. We are going to add from deck to hand, you guessed it, the first appearance. We'll activate the first appearance and get ourselves a copy of Agent from deck to hand. From here, we haven't normal summoned, so after we go for the Agent, we'll normal the Effect Veiler to go into Hulk. We'll use Hulk to summon an Effect Veiler from deck, and then we'll activate Agent to get back to hand the Geek Boy we just sent. From here, we can go Apo for 3, and then Ritual summon the Doom Broker, which we can then activate to set a copy of Interventions and pass back to our opponent. So that's an Omni 3 Appos into our opponent's 4-card hand. They're going to go for a Shunna into Monk. They'll trigger a Shunna. We will Appo. Unfortunately, that does trade for 2 of our Appo activations because they can go to combat. We will Intervention on the Emergence, and that was maybe a little sus. Now they get to resolve the Pot of Desires. We just have to hope it's not very good, and oh, it's incredible. They're going to go for the Vashutta here. They go into another Monk. Vashutta effect in Graveyard we have to negate. Now they're allowed to go to the battle phase in order to walk over our Apollosa, and then post-combat normal summon a Moye, reveal a Moye, and down comes a token. They'll go for the Chi-Shao here, activate the effect of the Chi-Shao, and the Moye in sequence draw an Emergence and a Longwan. They'll activate Longwan, pitching the other Moye, use Longwan's effect, and then... Whoa. How do we beat Evil Longwan? Oh my god, this card absolutely hoses us. Okay, we're going to go for Geek Boy. We'll activate the effect. It will get Chi-Sha'd, predictably. Afterwards, we're going to go for the Agent. We'll summon the Agent, and this should be our saving grace, except... I mean, they just negate the summon. That's so crazy. Alright, well, we can make Masquerena and Nightmare Unicorn. We can shuffle back Evil Longwan, but we can't beat everything on field. Unfortunately, we're going to pass it back to our opponent, and that is the end of the game. As soon as I see the Vessel, I concede. So we're back with the deck, and there is a lot of potential. Let's do the pros and cons. First, the pros. 1, wow, the resource loop is impressive. You really can just do the exact same thing every single turn while getting a bunch of material into rotation for link plays. It means you're often able to do both Apollosa turn 1 and Access Code turn 3. 2, there are a couple of cute little things this deck can do that really push its potential. Teleport, summoning, and then triggering Geek Boy is nutty. Illusion and Souls' interaction with the monsters, and a lot of other little silly corner cases really give the deck some wild ways to stay in the game. And 3, wow, Intervention is strong. Trap Omnis aren't ever really bad, but the fact that this one also pluses you is just insane. And the cons. 1, really low ceiling on this bad boy. I hope things improve when we get more cards, but decks like PK can't sneeze without making an Appo and a negation trap. 2, you really need to open a ritual monster if you want to accomplish any of your plays. This is a problem when the archetype has exactly 1 playable ritual monster. And 3, I do not know how this deck is supposed to beat a resolved Evil Longwan. It seems like it was developed in a lab to hose Libromancer specifically. All in all, I'm impressed by what the deck can already accomplish, but it's going to need a lot more in subsequent releases if it wants a real shot at being meta-relevant.